How can we move towards healthier states of consciousness? Why is this important? Well, one, this is Osho. He's an incredible spiritual teacher and one of my personal favorites. So we'll listen to him talk. I'm going to react to his teachings. Thank you so much for being here. Secondly, higher states of consciousness are those states that you can look at it on a ladder. Below is depression, anxiety, fear, phobia, trepidation, superstition, all of those fight or flight, survival states that make us feel paralyzed. And a lot of us, through endless cycles of doom and gloom, media narratives, bad experiences in life, we tend to grip lock onto those lower states of consciousness. The higher states of consciousness free us up from that fight or flight system that activates in our brains. It shuts down certain things, certain mental factories, certain biological factories, and it keeps you stressed. You have unconscious stress throughout your entire energy system. And as you move up the ladder to heightened states of being or heightened states of consciousness, you step into more of that creativity, imagination, where in ease and ecstasy and peace of mind. Remember that life, when it's serious, is a living nightmare. It's a living hell. Life, when it's playful, it's carefree. It's like a dance. And this is why it's important and critical that we work towards healthier states of consciousness, that it's in our own capability of doing so. First and foremost, I want all of us to know that we all have a responsibility. Responsibility is not paying your bills on time. That's kind of important, I guess. But being responsible for our inner terrain, our inner realm. This thing is so vast and so incredible. It's as vast as the cosmos. And you have something in you that you're tethered to that's bigger than you, that allows you to get over your mammalian brain, that scared survival ego, and step into higher levels beyond the ego, beyond the mind. Osho says there's no such thing as peace of mind. There's only mind or there's peace. So he separates the two to say that the mind really doesn't want you to get ahead in a lot of ways because it's built to protect you. And the ego needs constant nourishment to feel alive and not feel threatened. And so it's always giving you the worst case outcomes. And you can fuel that with your creative faculties, which is your imagination. And you can fuel that and build stories and narratives around your entire identity, around your mental matrix, which is really your reality. And so how do we shift our reality to a higher state of conscious that makes us more healthier, full-fledged, fully alive human beings? Let's take a look. This is Osho. Very excited about this.
One of the basic problem of psychologists, they are using a model of mind where yourself as a subjectivity is the center. And then below that there is an unconscious mind and a collective unconscious mind. The model you are using seems to have two polarity. One is the self, the conscious mind, our identification with our personality. And then there is a layer of mind, and somehow there is this kind of consciousness who is a state in which is below that, and there is no mind. And it seems that in human people, these 2 points are together. There is an identification. And in the enlightened one, there is a clear observation of this separation between self or personality and consciousness. Is this so?
I love this. This guy is very articulate. He's very articulate, and so I don't know Osho's personal framework for the mind, but what he's saying is this is something that I've adopted relatively lately. That's really helped me identify the difference between peace and mind. And I use certain words, and so I want you to understand those words that I use so that you understand the reference points of what I'm trying to talk about or articulate by using those words. I use the ego as, so before we showed up here on Earth, Before we showed up and we could speak English, we could learn thoughts and sentences and phrases, even before we had a personal identity. We were a baby. We were a baby that was filled with life, filled with vitality, filled with an inner spark and inner flame. I call that inner spark, I call that inner flame spirit. I think Carl Jung calls it soul. The opposite of that is what I call ego. Ego is what once we have like a self-identification, we can kind of notice that we're separate from everybody else, which as a baby, they have no idea. They don't even see reality like that. We build an ego identity or persona. So there's two things within that identity. Is the ego, which I represent as the survival mechanism within us that is part of deeply ingrained into our mind, that is always looking at the worst case possible outcomes in life. It's based on survival. So it's afraid of everything. It's like the inner child, if you could say, the inner child that's scared of life. And what happens is I feel like that a lot of us attach our persona, which is our personality. You know, we all have a certain personality, right? And that's made out of a lot of different things that we've attached to over our lifetimes. But I feel like, so you have personality or persona, and you have ego, and you have spirit or soul. Spirit, soul, ego, persona. Persona, ego, spirit. That's kind of the entity of who we are in my reference points anyway. I want to see how Osho breaks this down. So spirit is free from mind. Spirit is completely free from mind. It can actually cease all suffering by coming through spirit. It's that energetic source that we were before we even formed a personal identity. It's what we were before we took on thought, before we took on language. And so I have seen in myself that because of, bogged down by memory, bogged down by trauma, that I can self-identify with that and come from ego. I'm coming from that small place that's scared of life. And I realize that the more I separate myself from the ego and realize that there is a utility, there's as a utility to, you want to be concerned with different things around you, but you don't need to live your life through that lens at all times and be paralyzed from taking any action or living. And action's not just being motivated, it's living your life fully alive, fully vibrant, like you did when you first showed up here. Many of us are half alive because we've been bogged down by ego. All right, so let's take a look at Osho's teachings and see if we can learn something very, very amazing here. This man's very iconic. I can't wait to hear him.
It was Sigmund Freud in the West who for the first time used the word unconscious mind. He had no idea that in the East we have 5,000-year-old scriptures using the idea of the unconscious mind. So he thought he has discovered something. Then Jung found that if you go deeper than the unconscious, you find a collective unconscious mind. That too, in the East, we have been aware for centuries. One thing more we have been aware, which West has still to find out. If you go below the collective unconscious mind, you will find the cosmic unconscious mind. And that is very logical. Conscious mind is personal. Unconscious mind is impersonal. Then collective unconscious mind is of all that has preceded you, the whole history of mind. It's contained in it. But this cannot be the foundation. Below it there is a cosmic unconscious mind, which is the mind of the whole existence.
Cool. So he's going into not just the conscious realm of the personal identity, which is what I created, right? That triangle that we were talking about. But now he's going into the layers of consciousness itself, where he's saying, like Jung said, like Sigmund Freud said, that there is a collective unconscious where that we're all tethered to, I guess you could say. And I used that word tethered in the beginning because I do feel like that we are tethered to the umbilical cord of life, whatever that means. It may be the same cosmic consciousness that Osho is speaking to about here.
These are the steps if you go below, downwards. So, collective unconscious mind, cosmic unconscious mind.
Conscious mind, unconscious mind, collective unconscious mind, and cosmic unconscious mind.
These three are the steps below the conscious mind. Exactly three are above the conscious mind, which nobody has in the West yet even thought about.
Okay, so the three above the conscious mind may be the three that I expressed. We have the ego, the persona, personality, and the spirit, the soul. Those are the three conscious living minds, I believe. And that's how I reference them. So let's see what he might utilize for these three conscious minds.
Above the conscious mind is the state I called no mind. It is just like impersonal unconscious mind, which is below. This is above. It is also impersonal. But you are fully conscious of it. It is not unconscious mind. It is above the conscious mind. You can call it conscious no mind.
Conscious no mind. I believe in the triangle that I represented would be spirit or soul, the thing that's impersonal, but you're consciously aware of it. It's like it goes so complex that you experience love when others experience love. It's beyond the veil of your personal identity, which is very cool.
No mind because there are no thoughts.
Again, it's that spirit, that essence that you were as a child before you could form language and thoughts and even a personal identity, before you even knew that you're separate from life itself.
Absolute silence. Many meditators stop here thinking that they have arrived. So there are few religions in the East who have stopped on the no mind. Just as Sigmund Freud stopped on the unconscious mind and never bothered to go deeper it. But there have been seekers who tried to reach higher. As you go higher than the conscious no mind, you find superconsciousness or superconscious mind. This superconsciousness is exactly equivalent to the lower collective unconscious mind. In this state of superconscious mind, you experience that you are not separate, but you are part of a consciousness sphere which is above the biosphere that surrounds the earth.
Life has a flow. Earlier today to myself, I was saying, just as an affirmation, I trust the flow of life. I trust the flow of life. I trust the flow of life. And it allowed me to stop identifying with the ego and get back more in that spirit, soul, not attached to anything out here that I have to control, do, or have. And I think this super consciousness that he's referring to is that flow or stream of life that we're all a piece of, or like one drop in the ocean of that cosmic flow, that life energy. And when you can actually wrap your head around that, it does make you stand with more reverity for being part of something much bigger than your own little body. And you just inherently feel more tranquil, and in harmony with life itself. When we're in the ego and fearful of everything, we feel like we have to control everything, and that one thing's going to, castracize our whole lives. And so that affirmation really helps me feel that what Osho's relating to here is that super consciousness. That's what I was identifying with at that time. And I really was freed up from my own mind at that time. I wish I could stay in that ease and effortlessness at all times, but I fall back a lot.
That you partake with the whole sphere. This makes you aware of oneness of consciousness.
That's cool. I mean, just think about this. You have your one little mind, right? And you think it's everything. But now you're being told that there's a superconscious mind that you're tethered to, that you have access to as well. I know it's weird to say, but it gets you out of your own bubble, your own personal matrix, your own, construct of self. And it frees and liberates your mind from being in disorder or dis-ease or disharmony, because there's something vastly much bigger than you that doesn't make any of the things that your mind's doing feel so serious. And that's a superpower, when you can disassociate from the ongoing incessant need of the ego being constantly filled and validated for it to survive in this world, your safety, your security, and the self-identification that it constantly requires.
Few religions have stopped at superconsciousness. Just as Jung stopped at collective unconsciousness. Above it
Oh
is
boy.
the cosmic conscious mind. That makes you feel one, not with only consciousness, but with the whole existence as such. This is the point where one can feel what Patanjali calls samadhi. The word samadhi means all problems are solved.
It's that peace and ease, and that tranquility that I've been trying to resonate with in my talking points. The not the superconscious, but the cosmic consciousness is that state of samadhi that Patanjali described. And I'm presuming Patanjali, I think he wrote a lot of the data. Forgive me for my naivete. But it's that place where he experienced bliss, and it was what's the word? It didn't just come and go like it does for me. It was constant. And I believe, maybe naively, that we all have the same hardware. We all have the same brain. Okay. The ability to tap into these higher, healthier states of consciousness are not anyone's divine right. It's everyone's divine possibility. And it's given equally and fairly to all, irregardless of where you're born, what your caste is, your environment, your geographical location, your gender, your sex, your age. And I know that if we're all tethered into each other in some complex symbiotic relationship, we're all one cell in the human body of 8.2 billion celled human collective. What I do single-handedly within myself not only helps me, it benefits the whole. And if I want to end my own suffering, it's natural that you want to end the suffering for others. It's natural that if you always want to leave, this is a great tenet in life. You always leave something better off than it was before when you touch it. If you touch life, you try to leave it better off than it was once before. And the best way to do that is to every day carve and mold your statue, carve and mold yourself, your brain, your mind. It's so malleable. And anything you touch, you always want to leave better off. That's the characteristic that you want to have. And the world itself would be a much better place if we all touched life and left it better off than when we arrived. And I think that we should make that culturally iconic, culturally cool, culturally hip. Like, this is the inner work that we all want to do, that we all have this virtual ideal to touch and tap life and make it more. It doesn't need our beauty, but we are a piece of it, and we can damage it or we can make it healthier. And it starts with us. It starts with us. This video is very interesting. It's very interesting. And this video is almost 25 minutes long, so I'm going to end it there. But if you'd like to watch the rest of this, please do. The link will be in the video description below. And if you feel like I've earned it, please give this video a like button. It'll help push it out to other viewers. And what it also helps is leaving a comment, just something that hits you right, or that you want to discuss, drop that in the comments. That really helps push the video out to many other people. And if you haven't subscribed already, I'd love to have you part of my community. We're all about human potential and all of those fun things. But yeah, thank you so much for checking me out. I hope this is fun. It was definitely fun for me. And like this stuff, like, you know, it's a piece of my mind that doesn't want to look into this, doesn't want to do the work, but I don't listen to my feelings. My feelings never are oftentimes not going to serve the highest version of myself. They're always just going to want to take the easy route. And so that's why I like to do the hard work together as a family so we can watch together and discuss and have discourse. So thank you so much for your time. It really means a lot to me. And hopefully I catch you guys on the next video. Take care for now. See you then.